Hi there, we're going to get started on a paper mache project. And I want to go over a couple things about the basics of paper mache. First of all, I know sometimes it can be really daunting to reach your hand into this bucket of goo, but I do want to calm your nerves a bit by explaining that it comes from a box of powdered glue and it's just mixed with water. So it becomes sort of like a hair gel sort of consistency. So the paper mache paste itself is really not that gross. Before we even get to the paper mache paste though, we need to build a sculpture out of paper because this paste bonds itself very well to paper, hence paper, paste, paper mache. So when we're building with the paper, we need to make sure that we're using mostly paper, but the paper is not going to magically stick on its own. We will indeed need to use some masking tape. Okay, so here's a little hint about the masking tape. It is really time consuming to unroll the masking tape and constantly take off a little bit and then a little bit more. So what I would prefer to do is unroll, I don't know, about a foot or two, tear it off, and I'm going to go ahead and tear little pieces and I'm going to put them on the edge of my table so that way I have them handy and ready to use. So I only have to stop once in a while to reload the masking tape on the edge of my table. Okay, so when you're building with the paper, you want to treat it almost like clay. And when you're just folding the paper, this doesn't make it very clay-like. But when you crumple the paper, all of a sudden I have a much more moldable wad of paper to work with. Now that I have all this air between the layers of the paper, I can use my hand to kind of mold it into the shapes that I want, just like how I can mold shapes into clay. The first shape that I need to mold is an egg. So I'm going to go ahead and get started doing that. I want the egg to be about this a comfortable size to go between both of my hands. I've pretty much filled up the space between my hands here. It took a couple pieces of paper to do it, getting them nice and crumply. And so now I need to make sure that these pieces of paper stay together in my egg shape. For now, I'm just going to use a couple of pieces of tape. It won't feel very secure. I'm just putting it where there definitely needs to be some bonding between the two pieces. So it's together-ish, but you can tell it's kind of changing shape. So the next thing I'm going to do is what Miss Brown and I like to call the burrito method. That's where you take another clean sheet of paper, and you take this really messy wad of paper, and you cleanly wrap it up, just like you're working at Chipotle. All right, so now I have all those wads of paper inside this one piece of paper, which is going to make it a lot more secure. So I'm going to use a couple pieces of tape just to make sure that doesn't come undone anytime soon. The important thing when it comes to the masking tape is that you're not using too much. As I mentioned, the paste sticks best to paper. So if you have your entire sculpture completely mummified in tape, the paste is not going to stick to it very well at all. So make sure that you have most of your surface should be paper. There's my egg shape. Now from here, I'm going to make it the animal. I'm going to use the same method sculpting with the paper. I'm going to tear some smaller pieces off. Now I just need to worry about all the other extremities that are coming off of it. So if I'm making something that has an additional head on here, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, where I crumple up the paper into a ball shape. It's kind of hard just to stick it on there like this. I have to use a lot of tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to burrito this little wad again. And now the bulk of that head shape is still inside of there, but I have all this extra paper that I can use to attach to the other egg shape. It's a lot easier to kind of wrap around the back of the sculpture like this and to have all that extra paper that helps kind of like hug the original sculpture. I don't even know what I'm making here. I'm just trying to show you how to put several things together. All right, so now I've got this egg shape with like a little head type thing on top of it. Now let's say I want to make it some ears. I still want to crumple the paper, but ears are kind of thin, especially on like a bear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it so I get a nice, clean, crisp edge here. I always want to try to not leave these wrinkly edges on the outside of my sculpture. So I'm going to fold it so I get this nice, clean, crisp edge. That's going to be the edge of my ear. And I'm going to fold it around my thumbs like this. And yeah, I have a lot of extra paper here. I'll deal with that in a minute. But I'm just looking at this shape here and crinkling it around to create something that looks like an ear. So now I can add that onto my little sculpture here. So notice how I have all this paper back here. I don't need all this paper, but I definitely want some of it to help tape this across here. And we'll chop off some of this extra paper I don't need. Okay, and I'm going to take my tape, smush it across the back here like this. And I can still kind of smush and mold it into place where I want. It really is clay-like if you just kind of crumple it in the right way. Now, I do want to give you a hint about arms. This will be a good example. I'm apparently making a koala here. So I'm going to take a fairly long piece of paper and I'm going to crumple it up so that way I almost make like a coil of clay. Remember how like with the clay we would roll it into a coil? I'm going to create sort of the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and round off at least one of his hands here. I'm just going to pinch it, roll it. Okay. So our logic first says, hey, let's make one arm and then let's make a second arm. I'm going to tell you it's a lot easier if you make two arms at once or two legs at once, because it's going to be a lot easier to bend them into place and tape them onto your sculpture. So I'm going to hug the arms around my one-eared koala. And I haven't finished this hand yet because I want to make sure I make it long enough. I'm going to go ahead and put some tape to make sure the hand doesn't come undone. I'm also going to go ahead and twist this a little bit just so that way the arm feels a little bit more round. My tape is kind of thick, so I'm going to go ahead and tear it in half. Awesome. All right, so now I have two arms. I'm going to smush the middle of it down just so that way it's not creating like a big hunchback behind my koala. I'm going to wrap it around the back of his back here. And look, now he's like, give me a hug. That's cute. So now that I have his arms going across the back, all I need are a couple pieces of tape. Which I'm going to really conform the tape to the shape of the paper. Voila. I'm going to go ahead and give him another ear because it's driving me crazy. He doesn't have an ear. Okay. My little egg koala baby is underway. He's got his little hug me arms. Now, if I want to put some legs on him, I can kind of do the same thing I did here. Or if you have something that's more like a dog, you might want to put like a little disc on the side that sort of looks like a hindquarter. I'm going to explain what I mean here. So by hindquarter, I'm just being delicate and talking about, you know, the rump of the animal. I'm going to fluff up the paper again. And I'm going to turn the edges under. And just kind of tuck them inside of themselves until I create kind of like a pancake shape, like that. This pancake shape can now go on the side of the animal. So like if you have like a monkey that's sitting or something, you might see their hindquarter like this and then their leg kind of like sticks out underneath. Dogs and cats, when they sit, you always see like that big hindquarter and then again their leg just kind of sticks out underneath. So I think I'm going to do something like that. and something like this. That way I have the leg sticking out to the side, and I also am showing that big old thigh muscle. All right, since I sort of spontaneously decided that this is going to be a koala, I believe what I need to add is kind of a round nose here. And the smaller the detail, the harder it is to attach. The only thing I can really advise you to do is always add a little extra piece of paper around the attachment that can help you to smooth it onto the form that you are attaching it to. So for instance, if I need his little nose to go on like right here, I know they always kind of look like little Muppet noses. I can try to take a little skinny piece of masking tape, I'm gonna tear it in half to make it skinny enough, and to get it to actually like stick onto his face like that. That actually would work fine. It's kind of loose, but honestly, once I paper mache it, it's going to be solid enough. And that's true of all of these things. Yes, there's little gaps here and there. There are some things that are barely falling apart. You just need it to stick together enough to get the pasted paper on here. That is the part that's going to smooth it all out and really make it one solid structure. You can, as I mentioned before, do something similar to like I did with the ear, where you can wrap some paper around it. It's got too much paper here. Almost like I'm wrapping a candy or something. So that way I have sort of like this bulgy nose shape. And then I can attach it to the face here and here with these extra little pieces of paper. That would make it feel just a little bit more secure. Oh, it looks a lot more like a gremlin than it does a koala. But remember, I was totally winging this just so I could be able to show you how to create different forms to attach to your egg sculpture. I know I haven't gone over everything, but pretty much all the principles from here are the same. So tails, same thing. Curl, crumple, twist, however you need to shape the tail. Always leave a little extra paper so that way you have something that you can add on to your sculpture. Wings would be the same thing, almost kind of like how we did this little hip shape here. You might want to make it, three-dimensional, so crumple that paper, and instead of making it into like a pancake shape like I did here, make it into the shape of your wing and then attach it to the side of your creature. And of course, Miss Brown and I will be around to help you troubleshoot, but the biggest thing is you just need to experiment with the paper on your own. There is literally nothing I have come across so far that I couldn't sculpt out of paper. It can be done. You can figure it out. So this is a good chance for you to do a little bit of creative problem solving. So good luck.